Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that a notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. If you will, join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Maybe. Okay. First thing on our agenda tonight will be the roll call. And Mr. Esponserta. Here. Ms. Maria Perez.
Here.
Maria Douglas.
Here.
Sean Glovier. Here. Ms. Felicia Moody.
Here.
Miss Debbie Villa-Gomez.
Here.
And Mr. Darrell Owens. We are all here, and that is awesome. Okay. No absentees. That's awesome. Okay. Next on the agenda is public comments. And do we have anyone signed up for any comments on agenda items?
No doubt.
Do we have anyone signed up for any public comments on non-agenda items?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. All right. Then we'll go to section number 5, which is special recognitions, and I'll give that to Mr. G.
All right, so we have our Paul Awards for August 26th through September 29th. So for Central Office, we have Kim Daly and Dr. Stephanie Devlin. Our facilities and operations, we have Chuck Carpenter and Guy White. At Kennedale High School, we have the Kennedale High School administrative team. Allison Booble, Allison Middleton has 2. Andrew Hoskins, Angela Bruce, Chef Bowles has 2. Chris Burke has 2. Christy Vick has 3. Emily Clendenin has 2. Emily Stevenson, Gabrielle Nelovu, I hope I had said that right. Gary Burkham, Gilberto Diaz, Doug Groff, Jessica Harris, Joy Lucero, Julie Naughton, Kelly Wilson, Kelly Kidd, Carrie Allen, Kristen Dunn, Lauren Rosser has 2, Marquita Nelson, Melissa Springfield, Michael Cagle has 2, Michelle Fable, Nanette Tate has 2, Nadia Patel, Philip Oakley, Roger Leha, Shelley Fajewski, Simeon Arnsparger, Stacy Zachary, and Tracy Hadaway. At the junior high, we have Nurse Araceli Chavez, Stevie Moore, and at Delaney, we have Alexius Hill, Amanda Hooker, Ann Deal has 2, Ashley Arbor, Carolyn Enrico, Donna Wynn, Erica Wint, Janet Farid, Lacey Flores, Legia Kryn, Marcy Harris, Melissa Cook has 2, Michelle Keller, Rachel Parker, Van Tran. And at Patterson Elementary, we have the RFP office staff, Ashley Rogers, Brittany French, Carrie Clark, Crystal Brown, Demisha King, Darcy Logaines, Debbie Labrador, Eric Lockwood, Eva Martin has 2, Kenya Evans, Lauren Long, Leanne Vaughn, Lisa Horton, Michael Kwan, Michelle Reagan, Rachel Rigsby, Sandy Ball has 2, and Tiffany Stevens. And that's our Paul Awards for last month.
Awesome. Lots of names, lots of good recognition, showing that there's lots of good work being done in the district. Okay. All right, from there we will move to section 6, the consent agenda. All items listed under this subheading will be adopted with one motion unless they are removed from the consent agenda by a trustee for discussion. Are there any items that any of the trustees wish to have removed from the consent agenda? If not, then I'll entertain a motion for adoption.
I'll make a motion to approve all items under the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, motion by, excuse me, sorry. Motion by Ms. Douglas.
Second.
And I think we're gonna go over here, second for Ms. Moody. So, all time for a vote. All in favor of adopting consent agenda as presented, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. We will now go to section 7, Information only.
All right, so we have concluded many meetings, and we have Josh here with us with Huckabee, and he's gonna give you an update on where we're at, on our status, and that's, hopefully give some good information.
Yes, good evening, board members, Superintendent Owens, Superintendent G. Excited to be here tonight to share with you an update on the Early Childhood Center project and the progress that we've made since I last met with you. So tonight I'll review the scope again.
Or technology.
I'll review the scope with you. Not a lot has changed, but I will review all that again with you. There are some interior design updates, some good imagery to show you about the progress being made inside the building, progress on our environmental graphics that will be going into these spaces, and then an update where we're at on our schedule. So this is an updated site plan from what you've seen last time. This shows the back drive that will be added at the back of the building off of Arthur Drive. We've coordinated with Superintendent G, Ms. Mode, gotten input from the district about pickup and drop-offs. This is one scenario. I think the good thing about this is that as school happens at this campus again, this can be evaluated and modified. Basically, the two blue lines represent the drop-offs for pre-K, K, and first. That can be divided, pre-K and K on the left, first on the right, kind of however that needs to work out for the best traffic flow. But the new back drive at the back of the building has been designated as the bus drop-off area. We have our playscapes at the back of the building indicated with number 4. The main entry is number 1, and then our 2 parent drop-offs. This floor plan hasn't changed since you saw it last. We have our phase 1 scope, which we were initially working on. Now we have the phase we're calling phase 2, but all of it is within our project that we're currently working on, really touching every part of the building with the exception of the kitchen area. We are also making updates in the art and music space and the interactive, what was the music gym out at the back of the building. This is the same floor plan that you saw last time, but this does show an update that we made in the reception area. We took advantage of needing to do work in that area and make it more efficient. We created an additional first grade classroom by kind of reworking some of the spaces, moving the teacher workroom out of the first floor of this space into the 1-story building because we had space there to work with. Made a more efficient reception layout, conference room, office space. So that's what's shown on the second floor plan. At the bottom, the first at the top is what is there currently. So this is our material palette. So we've got the ceramic tiles at the top. The color will be used in the restrooms on the wet wall. Primarily will be the dark gray color with the color accent band at the top. We're utilizing layered vinyl tile for the main flooring throughout the building. You'll see in a minute, if you remember, we've got primarily the gray tone, but the colors are being used for wayfinding to help direct students throughout the building. And then we have the paint colors that associate to those and also tie into the environmental graphics that we're using. Those are kind of gray colors to the right for the door frame paint colors, countertops, casework, and the floor base that we'll be using. So this is the wayfinding that I mentioned. You probably remember possibly what we were doing in the first floor, 1-story building, but we've added it to the second level for the additional kindergarten classrooms. So as they enter the door, they'll see the colors. The colors represent and take you to those kindergarten pre-K rooms and those experiential learning areas. And those colors tie into the main color that's in those environmental graphic spaces. So as you get to that classroom door, this is a tackable surface that'll be next to that door. So that ties in as an additional color. So the color on the floor takes you to the color on the door frame to the tackable surface on the right. So there's that common theme to help them navigate throughout this building. I've walked the building many times. I was there today. I still kind of get turned around. So hopefully these colors will help them navigate that building more easily. The image on the right, that's the typical kind of wet wall elevation showing the tile, the gray tile down low, and then that color band that we'll be using at the top. Consistent throughout the building in the restrooms. So we did make a slight modification to the reception area, relocating, kind of reorienting the reception desk. So it will be located against the side wall so that we have a deal tray so that it limits the amount of people that actually have to come into the space. They can come into the vestibule, drop off lunches, drop off medicine, and they really never have to enter into that reception space. So these are the flooring that we'll be using, the casework, accent green color, and the laminate countertops. These are the room theme locations, so we've worked with Dr. Vu, Dr. Keys to establish these room themes so that they tie into the curriculum that's being taught for pre-K and kinder. So those are pre-K classrooms on the first floor. So we have Ocean, Wonderland, My Community, Zoo, Let's Get Going, Construction, Biomes, Journey Through Time. And then we get into the kinder rooms of Our Community, Seasons, Earth and Space. We have a flex room where the library was that can be for kinder or pre-K, of life skills, and then the second floor kinder as forest, Arctic tundra, rainforest, desert, savanna, goods and services. So some of these you may remember seeing previously. There have been some minor updates we've added to this to capture the additional themes that we're doing on the second floor of the two-story building. So this is the pre-K, My Community and construction rooms. So this will be on that one main wall in the space. The rest of the walls will be painted a color that ties into these graphics. Pre-K, Let's Get Going, and Wonderland. Pre-K, Ocean, and Zoo.
Can you talk about the number lines in the letter?
Sure, so at the bottom of each, you'll notice the alphabet. It'll be English and Spanish. There's a number line also, and so that'll be consistent throughout each of the spaces. We've had, I think we're on meeting number 4 of reviewing these with the district. We have another meeting next week to kind of finalize these so that those will be included in our construction documents. Kindergarten, Our Community, and then Earth and Space. Also, one thing that's kind of lacking from these, there'll be a lot of labeling in both English and Spanish on these objects, and so we're working through that. Some of that's not represented. And some of these, the comment that we got last time we reviewed is maybe added some more animals, add some more content. So once these are all finalized, I'll come back and show you the actual final version. And then we have Kindergarten with Seasons and the Arctic Tundra. Rainforest, Goods and Service. This one's probably going to tweak quite a bit from what you're seeing. We've got some kind of a different direction to head with the Goods and Service. So this is kind of where we were at with that one. So I wanted to show you an update, but this one will be kind of drastically updated for what you see next time. Savanna and Desert. So this is new. You haven't seen this before. So this is what we're proposing for what was the music gym space that we're turning into an interactive learning area, primarily for those first grade students who aren't getting one of these other experiential learning areas, but really could be used by any of the students. If it's raining outside or just on a daily basis, this will all be inside that space. So we will be painting the walls with this graphic. Rolling hills, blue sky, we're painting the ceiling the blue color. And then these are 2 options of a playground structure that can go into that space. We'll have a rubber flooring below this for the fall protection, and then continue that out beyond just the play area. So schedule, we are toward the end of September. Our documents are currently under a QC review internally at Huckabee, and then our consultants are also doing their own QC. We had a page turn this morning to walk through all the scope with Mr. G, Ms. Moan, and others from the district to make sure we've captured all the scope that we've talked about. We've got some updates to do, some modifications to make, but that will be done by October 13th when we'll be issuing the documents for bid and permit. And then we will get bids early November with construction to start toward the end of this year and wrap up July of next year. The only other thing I'll add is my last cost estimate, we were still in budget. Based on my last estimate, I'm still working on, I got updated numbers this week from consultants, so I'm working on getting that updated. I was working on that right before I came here. We're still trending under budget, So I'll provide Mr. G an update once I get that finalized.
Great.
Any questions?
Are we still on the timeline that you
Yes, ma'am.
shared with us with Morton?
And just for clarification,
Yes.
if the timeline holds that you have, we would be able to open in time for
Correct.
the next school year.
Correct. So what we will communicate to the bidders is a July completion date. That'll give you a month, a little over a month to be able to move in and occupy those spaces and let the teachers get settled before school starts.
Touch on the materials and that the materials that we have chosen are still.
Yeah, so we've been actively monitoring the material situation to make sure we're choosing materials that are readily available so we don't end up in an issue with something has to ship from overseas. We don't have that. It's all local, it's still readily available. So we're keeping our eye on that for sure.
Nice.
Question from the left side?
No, it's exciting.
Yes.
Really exciting. Yeah.
It's gonna be a big transformation. I'm excited to see it happen.
Yeah. And thank you
Well,
too
thank-
for sharing again about the timeline, because I know so many people say, what's going on? There's never anything going on, but there's so much that has to happen prior to actually
There's
breaking
so much
ground or,
happening.
yeah, oh, I know.
Yeah.
But, so it's nice to be reminded of the timeline and
Right.
that we're still on track with everything.
We're on track. We're having a lot of meetings, doing our due diligence to
Yeah.
make sure we've captured everything that you've requested.
Mhm.
Yeah, just checking the boxes and we're getting to the end. So within a few weeks, we'll issue those documents and hopefully get good bids.
Yeah.
How many different people presented this morning?
So I had my MEP consultant, they attended virtually, so we have a mechanical representative, electrical, plumbing, so that's their expertise, so they walk through the drawings with Mr. G and others from the district. My technology consultant attended in person, talked through that scope with Mr. Franklin. Myself and my interior design associate were present. I spoke for the structural engineer. There's not a ton of structural scope that's happening on this project, so I could speak to that even though I'm an architect. My civil engineer was present to talk through the back grading that's happening, and for the road, the accessible parking that we're providing at the back of that space. I think the only thing I didn't mention is we are extending the canopy that's at the back of that building to pick up that back drive. So there'll be a covered walkway continuous from that new drive up to the building. So we had a good showing. That's what we typically do at the end of a project, just to make sure that the district is all on board with what we're showing in the documents and we haven't missed something. We made some modifications this morning, made some improvements to the plan, so we'll be incorporating that over the next few weeks before we issue.
Nice. It makes me wish I had a little to go through this.
Yeah.
I think a key phrase you said is trending under budget.
Yes, I mean slightly, but still, our estimate right now is under budget, so hopefully
Awesome.
that holds true whenever we come to bid day with the contractors.
Awesome.
Did you say 15,000 today?
Yes, and I may have picked it up in other areas, but you know, that's the thing is like we're continually monitoring the situation. Something goes down, something goes up. Thankfully, we've been able to trend under budget and stay there. So it's an ongoing exercise for sure.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
It's a great report.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm super excited.
Next, the 7B, bilingual ESL annual program evaluation.
Ms. Goldie will present that.
Good evening. In your board book, you have our annual bilingual and ESL program evaluation. We do this every fall based on the prior year's programming. I know you've looked at it, so I won't read it through, but I just want to walk through the sections and then be available for any questions that you have. So the student profile section basically outlines what languages our EB students are speaking in our programs, and also the enrollments in our schools, by school. Program content and design is what models we're using and at what grade levels. The English proficiency and reclassification gives you a chart with the program exit numbers per campus for this year as opposed to last year. And then the language proficiency progress is in the student performance data, and that will show you the students' composite scores, the rates for scoring at each level in the grade bands that are published by the state. And then the rates for students progressing at least one proficiency level for students that have comparative data from the year before. So they would have had to have that data from last year to this year. That was touched upon in the accountability piece that was presented last month. And then you have the staffing and the training. It talks about our teacher certification and our annual trainings. And then the recommendations for next school year, which are basically driving our department improvement plans at the district level and also our systems and procedures. Do you have any questions about the contents of the report?
Any questions from any of the board members?
Just to make sure, the scoring, the score growth is for the TELPAS exam, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, will you say that again? What was your question?
The scores come from the TELPAS?
Yes, okay. Where did you say the one was when they were exiting? Was that the first one?
In English proficiency and reclassification, it tells you how many students exited the program, were reclassified at the end of the school year per
Yes,
campus.
but which?
Oh, I'm sorry, under English proficiency and
Yes, okay,
reclassification
right,
section.
thank you.
It's on the second page.
It's the second page.
Yeah, page 2. So if I'm reading this right, for example, Delaney, at the beginning of the year, they had 6, and at the end of the year, only 3 still remain in that program.
No, 3 actually exited the program. That was actually last year's data to this year's. We always give you last year's and this year's data. So this year, 3 students out of all of the Delaney students were reclassified. And that would be based on the LPAC coming together, looking at the data, making sure that whatever the state had put out as the requirements for exit were met by the students and the recommendation for them to not need services anymore.
Any other questions? Correct.
I do have one real quick question. So when they're exiting, which is very positive, right? Are there any measures in place to kind of still track them to make sure that they are
They are
continuing to
monitored
do well,
for-
even though they're not receiving those exact same
Yes.
services?
They are monitored for 2 years.
For 2 years?
Yes.
Okay. And then they can go back and get additional services if still kind of struggling, or?
They can be readmitted into the program.
Okay.
Or they would fall under other interventions?
I misspoke, I'm sorry, 4 years, they're monitored for 4 years.
4 years, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so while they're being monitored for 4 years, then RTI would be the way to go if they're still not needing this level of services, but maybe still struggling, okay.
They can be getting RTI services and be in an English language program, because this is more about language proficiency.
Right.
Whereas RTI might be related to the content.
Right.
But when the teachers are serving the students, they have to be aware of their language challenges and what level they're at, so that they can put in the correct supports, so that they can perform academically at rigorous levels with the language supports until they're up to that proficiency in English, or whatever their second language is, which
Right.
would be English for us.
Okay.
So they're getting academic support and they're getting language support, and they can be getting that through RTI and through the LPAC committee, who's monitoring their accommodations and their progress.
Does sorry.
25 languages, that's quite an impressive number.
Yes.
Quite a
yes.
diversity in our student population.
And we have remained, the languages have gone up the last few years, but we have remained about the same for our Spanish speaking. The actual percentage of Spanish speaking students has not changed barely at all in the last 5 years. But we are adding more languages to students coming in. A variety.
Does the exiting numbers take into account the ones that whose parents say, I don't want them to be in the bilingual group anymore? Or no, it's once they fully exit?
Right,
That was a
these-
separate category.
Parent denial is at 0.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not denial of services. That's when they meet the criteria. And that would include specific levels on TELPAS and reading STAR.
Oh, there it is.
Depending
It's a
on the grade
separate
level, there are
category.
different instruments they also need to perform on reading tests a certain level.
Yeah.
And then they also need to be advanced high on every domain of Telpos, was what the
Exiting only
reclassification
finishing the
was,
services.
the criteria.
Which we have, there's zero.
Correct, okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On here.
Okay, now we'll take us to 7C, technology and infrastructure.
Okay, and Mr. Franklin will present on this. I've asked Mr. Franklin, our Director of Technology, to kind of give us an update on the many projects that we have going on where we're working on our infrastructure. We used our E-rate funding. A lot of these projects were approved before many of you were on the board, and we've been progressing there. A lot of them were delayed because of, well, everything else that delayed everything. So I'll let him kind of give an update where we are on those projects.
That's exactly it. I was about to say, Mr. G asked me to give you guys an update on our technology infrastructure. And as I was going through this, exactly what you said. We did this a long time ago, and we've done a lot. So I'm just going to quickly kind of take you back in time a little bit, and we'll just touch on some things that we've hit along the way, and where we are today, things that you have been a part of, and show how that kind of ties in. So 2018, that's actually important. We replaced our teacher laptops then. I'm saying that's important because it's 2022 now, about to go into 2023, so not a discussion for today. But we also updated our internet backbone to the district, and then we upgraded our connections between campuses, not including the admin building, in 2019. 2019, we had our first Chromebook, official budgeted Chromebook refresh cycle approved by the board. And then, 2020, we filed for the structured cabling, the network cabling projects across all of our campuses. That was 2020. Then, all the lockdowns and craziness happened, and we expanded our Chromebook one-to-one initiative to cover grades pre-K through 4. It was previously grades 5 through 12. And that's a lot more than just devices, really. You've got to think about, we had to upgrade our Google workspace to a better education program, so we could take advantage of some more advanced features in Google Meet, so teachers could remotely work with the kids. We had to expand our GoGuardian filtering for all of the kids that were off-site, the Gaggle alerting system for all of the kids that were off-site as well. So it was kind of an undertaking. That same year, we also refreshed all of this equipment, and then when we came back that fall, we replaced the backup system that backs up our in-house servers. We added some security features for our staff email as well. And then in 2021, we got a direct dark fiber line to connect the administrative complex back to here. It had been going through the old wing of the CSS building to connect to Delaney, and in order to demo that piece of the building, we had to reconnect the admin facility. So that not only services the operations building and CSS building, but it also serves the Success Center, DAEP, and of course the facilities building back there as well. So that services the entire complex and students. So the next thing, last year we did an E-rate filing for our switches and wireless access points, and we replaced our phone system as well. And then in 2022, we implemented a new IT asset management and help desk system. That help desk system, and what that did was it let us put all of our Chromebook management in one place. So it made it easier for librarians, and now we have the CTE practicum, well, just the computer maintenance class is starting to help us with Chromebooks at the high school, and they are participating in this ticket system as well. So it's just kind of brought a lot of pieces of software into one place for us to manage our IT assets. So the next slide's real quick, and it's just one more, and it's kind of open projects and where we are. Like that 2020 structured cabling project, Patterson and Delaney, we did the final walkthroughs on those, on the cabling, just last week. So there's still, you know, if you go in those rooms, there's still some of the original cabling hanging out, and we're still using that, and we have to use that until we move to the new switches and access points. But the cabling itself has been verified. Junior high is in progress. The high school here is still in progress. It's almost complete. This is a more complicated environment. It covers every room in the main campus, the annexes, this one included. You know, they were just recently, just as of this week, they're working on fiber that goes from the main campus up to the stadium, down into this area that'll service the athletics complex as well. So that's why high school is still in progress. Arthur, of course, will be complete at the summer of 2023. So a lot of that has been, and same with the switches and Wi-Fi access points. So when I say switches recently arrived, just the switches have arrived. Those were ordered a year ago, and they just showed up maybe last month, and we have still not received the wireless access points. We're hoping that'll all be done. The completion of that will be, it's gonna depend on when those access points arrive. And if they arrive after, in my mind, you know, the closer they get to testing time, the closer, that means we push it off to the summer. I'm just not gonna be the guy to replace all the network equipment right before testing. So if they come in sometime in fall, we will make a push to get that replaced before testing season. So it depends on that, but it should be done no matter what. This time next year we should be, I say no matter what, all things going well, we get everything we're supposed to get, it should be completed over summer of 2023. The Promethean active panel boards, that's still in the procurement process. We're hoping to deploy those in fall of 2022. So that too is dependent on delivery of the panels. So.
And when all this is in place and it's all here and operating, what is that gonna provide for our district, or what is it gonna do for our district compared to what we have now?
We'll definitely, I think one of the largest things that we will notice from just an end user standpoint is going to be the more robust wireless connectivity, the ability to, we've purposely stacked wireless access points in large spaces like gyms where they will be able to put more people in there to do testing, because that's a popular thing. From a cybersecurity standpoint and just a overall just network management standpoint, you know, the equipment will be, there's a lot of management pieces that'll make it easier to give us better interfaces to have more visibility into the equipment and make changes and what's the word, like do regular performance tuning on it. It's newer technology in itself, so it'll just run faster. Regular systems patches for security updates, that'll take a lot less intervention, and they'll be pushed out regularly.
Give the analogy of right now it's running through a garden hose, but when
yeah, I mean, the switches are, all these things, we really experienced some of this, some of the age when we had our new hire in here. And of course, it was a very large group of people in here, but you know, we had everyone turn on their laptops at the same time and trying to load Teams and everything, and it was a little bit painful. The new system should be able to handle that type of capacity. So I'm looking forward to it. We're all looking forward to it. We are anxious. I think there'll be noticeable performance improvements across the district.
That timeline of projects, what is the estimated cost of all of these projects that we've put into play?
So, you're catching me off guard. Because you have to account for the E-rate discounts, and then there's also been there was some work we did outside the scope of E-rate, because the 2021 school year, some of the rules changed. I want to say, gosh, Jimmy, can you help me a little bit? What our portion of
switches, our portion
it was close to, it was just under 300,000 for that, and the network piece was not, it was somewhere close to that, wasn't it? Or a little more? It's because we added some of the out of scope, out of E-rate items. We ran out of E-rate money at the high school, so we had to do some add-ons, but I think probably 300,000-ish or so per project is about right. We maxed out our E-rate budgets for both years, so that's a 5-year refresh cycle, and it's funny, because by the time we get our new equipment installed, we're gonna be almost to the next cycle. But, it's actually not funny, but.
It's like
The
post
reality is
2020.
It's just.
our network and our wiring, our cabling, everything was getting older, and the cabling alone will get us down the road 25 more years, which is the cabling that we put in. The switches will take us another 6 to 8 years.
Yeah,
depending, so.
6 or so, 7 years. And just the idea too, with the cabling piece of it, we had to use an entire E-rate cycle for that. We kind of, they changed the rules on us just in time, because when they changed those rules, we got a whole new E-rate budget. So we spent the 2020 budget on cabling. We did cabling because the way that cables are laid out can affect your network performance. And this was kind of like not a planned community. If you're looking at cities with the way roads are designed, whereas you go to like a Plano or something like that, the ramps are all really efficient and it was pre-planned. And we were growing with the technology at the time, before any one-to-one, before everyone even had school district email, all that stuff. So there's cables kind of just everywhere, and they might even be prone to interference. Some older cables that don't support speeds of modern devices. So we're replacing all of that, so our new switching equipment would have a really firm foundation so we could maximize the performance of that equipment as well. The good thing is when we, because of the way the E-rate cycle's working, we won't have to continue to do cabling. We can maybe budget that out to where we can kind of make plans to either take care of any additions that we need to do, kind of replace equipment partially, kind of get them on cycles so it's not as big of a hit. The E-rate discount too all depends on free and reduced. So if that increase, we were like a little over 100 or so applications away from having an 80% E-rate discount instead of 60. So that can change. Of course, if it goes the other direction, our discount goes the other way. So.
All right.
Anything else any other questions on any of this stuff?
I guess the message, we put a substantial amount of time and effort and
That's
resources
right.
into upgrading our technology to move us into the future in our schools.
That's right, and it's ongoing.
Very proud of those efforts.
Thank you.
You do a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's now move on to section 8, items that may require some discussion and approval. We'll start with 8A, the discussion, considering approval of the shared service agreement between them.
Ms. Rawls, Director of Special Education and Student Services.
Hello, good evening.
Who's that?
Can you hear me? I'm short, so I had to pull it down. Just you have a copy of the shared service agreement with Arlington ISD, which is our services that are provided for our students who are deaf and hard of hearing and require sign language for instructional services and communication. There were no changes made to the contract in itself. There was a little adjustment to a legislative change where it referenced previous reporting, and that has been removed as required. But other than that, there were no changes to the contract for what we have been providing to students in previous years. Do y'all have any questions about the services and what that looks like?
Currently, we don't have that many students.
No, we have 3 students that are currently at the Regional Day School for the Deaf, which is in Arlington ISD. We do have a few students that we do serve with deaf and hard of hearing in district, but those students who require that sign language for communication and instruction, there's 3.
Has that been consistent over the last few years? Has it increased or decreased? Or?
It's been pretty consistent. We haven't really seen a change in enrollment to students who need to go, but of course, as we know that we are receiving new students, and that is always a possibility, but we'll continue to monitor that and work with Arlington ISD when we do have students with that need.
I was gonna ask the same thing, so I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Okay. If no other questions, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 AISD Shared Services Agreement as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Ms. Douglas, and the second, was that by?
Right, Maria.
All right, okay. And that's Ms. Brisk. Any other questions? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you. So we'll move now to the next section. That will be 8B, discussion, consider approval of the baseball concession stand.
Ms. Mode and Mr. Gadbois. Ms. Mode will present. It's easier for.
This is kind of a, making lemonade out of lemons. If we didn't have a fire, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But unfortunately, we did, and we need to rebuild. In your board packets, there were 3 different options in there. And what we're really asking for today is the direction that you want us to go. We will rebuild a baseball concession stand, but in having those conversations around that, other things started popping up in, as far as equity with our softball, ADA parking, and all those type things started bubbling up on that. So those were some of the things that we were looking at to take this from maybe just a baseball concession stand to creating a complex. We've been to other districts that have that option there. It's usually a field house in between, but we have a big space between the 2 fields that we could upgrade that area to benefit our girls softball as well as our boys baseball. But that's what we really wanted, some guidance today from you as a board, because if we're gonna do this, now's the time. I realize there's a price tag to that. And we're just looking for some guidance on which way you want us to proceed on that. Robert, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not until they start shooting up.
Do y'all have any questions?
Can you walk us through some of the benefits of trying to do that?
The main benefit that I see is our equity between the boys and the girls. Right now, or not now because the one's burned down, but they were completely equal. They looked exactly the same footprint, everything. When we go to looking at the boys, rebuilding the baseball concession, we want to update that to things that weren't thought about when we brought those over. That footprint was already there in those portables that we brought over, and we just made, the best of that situation. But with building a new one, we had the opportunity to create some storage spaces, create a ticket booth. Right now, softball and baseball stand out on the sidewalk with a bag and a table there. So we could create a ticket booth, and right now our umpires, we have no place for them to be. Just like right across here, we have for referees for football, for them to change clothes. A lot of them, this is a second job for them, so they're changing clothes in the parking lot. So we could create an umpire locker room, and of course this concession stand, very definitely, and update those fixtures and stuff in the bathrooms. So that's the plus for both sides, boys and girls. The need is the strongest for the boys right now because of course they don't have a concession stand on there. The dual, I'm gonna be honest, it's a great want, and I know it has a big price tag to it, but I think it will also build us up into a complex instead of baseball, softball, and bring that community together. And if girls always seem to get finished before the boys do, a lot of times we have games at the same time, then people can come on over to the softball game or the baseball game or vice versa. So it does bring that to the community, and building it not off-site, but over, allows us to really update our parking. We have some ADA challenges, especially at the baseball field, that would take care of that ADA on there. We could put the appropriate ramps and stuff in and create those spaces.
We have like 4 different things that we're looking here. Is there a way to project those so that people also?
These aren't my plans.
Okay.
I don't have, do you have any way to project these? I didn't even think about. I don't have them on my laptop. All I have is the PDF
Because
that came across.
I'm just thinking it might be helpful to project them for people that are gonna go back and view this. And then if you could walk us through the differences from 1, 2, 3, 4, other than, I heard what you kind of said were some of the advantages, you know, to the complex, but looking at these 4 different ones to really even walk me through what's the difference
You look at
between
the-
1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4.
I
There's
can
only
give you a
3.
quick one.
There's 3.
But again, if it would, perfect,
Yeah.
But if you look at the very first slide,
thank you.
that shows where the
What it is
baseball
right
concession
now.
stand is and where option 1 would replace just that.
Okay.
Where
Okay,
you're
so
looking at
I'm sorry,
2,
Mr. G, you're on site plan 1,
The first
The very
page.
first
the very
slide.
first
Very
diagram.
first
Okay.
slide, yes. And you're looking at basically, you've got the one building right behind, I guess, the home plate bleachers, you know. You see that's replacing the existing structure with a new structure in that same location, okay? Which has its issues with grade and everything else. But now, when you look down here on the right hand, on the side, with the right field side, the left field side, sorry, I gotta get backward, turn around. Now you're looking at a complex, where we're talking about more than a complex, where you've got 2 halves,
So
and that
this-
would be option 2.
Option
I
2.
think you're missing.
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, there's
One
a
on the left
second
field
one.
side.
No, it's right field.
Is it here?
It is right field, sorry.
I was
I'm
like,
right.
what are you
I-
saying?
I did say right field.
Right,
It's
if
right
this is
field.
complete, this is
Because it would be
Right.
between baseball
It's
and
just basically
softball.
the
It's
2
here.
drawings where it has the 2, that's
Yeah.
This is baseball,
basically
softball is here.
So
the
it'd
next
be in the
slide
middle
after,
of the
sorry,
two.
the second slide
I like that.
is the
I
one right
like
behind
that.
home plate. The third slide is the one that you're seeing down on the right field side of the complex.
But even the second slide is more than just replacing the concession stand.
First, I'll tell you how I laid them out in there.
Okay,
The
thank
first
you.
one is
That was-
strictly if we just do baseball. That's the drawing for just changing the baseball field.
First
There's
one
4
being,
slides, this is what's confusing,
I
there's
know,
4
I know.
slides, so.
The second slide is just the layout of what would be the complex. The baseball field's here, the softball field's here, and those gray that's kind of showing, just giving you a way to see where it would be laid out on there. Is that what y'all are looking at?
No, but I think I think if you project it, that'll help us and the audience.
Because you're saying first slide, but.
I think we have the
that's
set
not-
slides in the same order.
There's
Or even
only-
second
there's-
slide's not what yours.
Okay.
There's only 3 options. So the first option, we're keeping, we're only fixing baseball, and it would be housed right behind the baseball field currently.
Home bleachers,
Right
which is
behind home.
slide.
Where it was
Exactly
before.
where it
Yeah.
was burned out, exactly where it was
Which
before.
That's what I was trying to explain, the very first
Options
slide.
2 and 3 have something in between the baseball and softball fields, and it's a new concession stand, ticket window, lockers, restrooms, everything for both baseball and softball to use. The only difference between option 2 and 3, besides a price,
Yeah.
is it's the layout is a little bit more
Gotcha. Now I
welcoming. There's
get
a
it.
nice tunnel in between to divide up the 2, but otherwise it looks like they have about the same
So
features.
I know on option, concept number 2, there's a concession stand on the right and on the left of the tunnel. Are those open at the same time? One serves
No, it
the
would just-
softball and one serves the baseball field?
Right, if they're
Yeah.
playing at the same time.
You have different booster clubs, so they don't work in unison, so having 2
Well, and the
separate
main thing about
concession
that
stands.
is we have UIL requirements for revenue and how many kids, or how many people are there and how much money you made and how much we gotta send to UIL and how we pay our umpires. So that has to remain separate, so we can't have one ticket booth, because we do have the situation where we have baseball and softball at the same time. So, we'd have a softball ticket window and a baseball ticket window. What Ms. Gomez was talking about is where you see the two, it would have kind of a walkway through there, and we're talking about putting an awning over the top so people aren't wet if it's raining or whatever through there. That last one is a combination of those. Instead of building two separate buildings, we made a smaller footprint and still would get us what we needed, but just in a smaller scale.
So we still have two
Having two
concession
separate bathrooms for men and women on both halves, you would just have one bathroom that would be shared between softball and baseball, with the concessions on the end where you still have the two separate concession areas.
And my question
And two
was,
separate
because
ticket
I've
booths.
seen this, so I know, but my question is, would the restrooms currently like right outside the softball field, would those stay? So these would just be in addition, or what would the plans be?
The plan would be
For
to
the softball.
demolish the softball.
Demolish it.
Yes, because that would provide us the area to create
The
more
parking.
handicap parking
Okay,
in
that's
that
what I-
area, and give us the area we need to make those ramps appropriate.
And because
Okay.
it's a portable building that was moved in there, we're seeing some of the same issues that we saw with the other
Right.
one, to where the floors,
Yeah, it's uneven.
it's gonna
Um,
cost us money eventually, so.
Okay, I hadn't heard that, so that's what I was
Are
curious
those
about.
costs included in this proposal, the demolishing and redoing the parking lot?
No, I do not have that in, or did y'all link it? I think, I didn't, there's not a separate line item for it.
Pretty aggressive with its pricing, so I think comfortable you get the cost of demolition great.
And it would make us completely ADA accessible at that point.
Yes,
Now
Do
that,
you-
now that they're up there, can you go through slide 1, 2, 3, 4?
yes, absolutely. What you're looking at right now is if we just
Is that the
rebuild.
first slide? I'm sorry, keep it. That's
concept
not-
one.
That's not
That's
our first
slide-
Slide one is just the current layout.
I know, but if we
Yeah.
got it,
Yeah.
let's show it. Do
Yeah.
we have slide 1? Because that's, we
That's
have
it.
slide.
This
That's not
is-
our
I
slide
think
1.
let's-
We have a
let's start
different
with
slide
this.
1.
I think
Side
we
She
plan.
wants the site plan.
Site plan.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could just give her one voice to go ahead, so I'll just speak. Would you mind backing up to the first slide that you showed on the schematic that you provided to us,
Brian,
and then walk from there?
I don't have control.
Going to the very first slide.
Keep going.
There you go.
There
Right
we
there.
go. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
One more.
One more.
You can page up and down on that computer and take it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, every time I touch it, it messes.
There
up.
you go.
There we go, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So when I sent it, I sent the baseball, then this, and then the other two. So that's why we're talking different things here.
Yes.
I apologize for that. Okay, so this drawing here is if we decide to do the complex. So what this does is where the baseball, it's kind of numbered here, that would be strictly baseball. We wouldn't do any of that other stuff. Just strictly change out the baseball concession stand, build a new one, exactly same footprint on there. The option 2 that you see there is what we're talking about. This side would be baseball and the other side would be softball on there. And that's the walkthrough where you have the concession stands and the 2 ticket booths and all that, where everybody can kind of keep, we want to be together, but we need to be separate a little bit on, for the UIL stuff.
And
on
option
there.
3 is not on here, depicted on here, but it would be in the same location as
Yes,
that.
yes,
It
It's
would
option
be a
2.
smaller footprint than that.
3.
yes.
In the same spot as option 2?
Yes.
Yes, and the whole area of option 2, when we're talking those second 2 drawings, first drawing and the other 2, the first drawing is talking strictly right there behind the bleachers, where the other 2 options are where option 2 would be at on there. Okay. Next one, Brian. Thank you. Okay, this is strictly the baseball. Just rebuilding the baseball. What we did here is trying to,
That's concept
that's
3.
option, I was gonna say, that's not the right
That's
one.
option
These are so out of.
This is concept.
So can you use
why these numbers are, these are different numbers. Yeah, on your board packet, this is concept one,
Yes.
okay? So.
No, it's
you're
not.
talking-
That's
concept.
No.
That's
Concept. Sorry, he has a problem slide.
There.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. This one here is strictly baseball, because that's what I was looking at going, this is not the right one. Basically what would happen is footprint of parking lot, everything stays the same. Everybody walks in. What's changed here though is now before they pass the gate, they stand at the table, take the money and put a little awning up and hope it doesn't blow over. So right now what we have is a ticket booth on that corner, and of course there's some storage built into that, and then the concession stand is on the field side of it. Next to that would be the locker rooms for the officials to change clothes or cool off, especially if there's a tournament. There's no place for them to go. If it's a day-long tournament, we have no place. They usually go sit in their car. And there's a bathroom, and it will all be unisex because we want to keep it even, because we do have female umpires. So, you know, we'll have it to where if someone needs to go in a shower and restroom, they can shut the door and just have the other area to cool off. And then we have the women's restroom and the men's restroom, and this also adds in a family restroom versus we don't have that now. We just have men and women's on there. You have any questions?
CUST is custodian closet?
Yes.
Okay.
That's really, it says custodian mechanical, so that's where the water heater,
Okay.
the HVAC and stuff like that would be housed. And now that's in the concession stand, so that kind of, you know, we had concession stand workers in places that it probably really didn't need to be, but like I said, that's the layout we had. We used it, and it worked for us for a while on there. Any other questions?
I don't know.
And again, this is just the layout to show you where the two options were on that. And moving to the next option, probably my arrows aren't moving. Up arrow doesn't work. Keeps sending me back.
That's one.
It just does not want me to show that other slide.
Two,
Option
concept two.
One.
There you go. There, so,
One
oh,
point
back.
You had it.
million.
Two separate
That's
buildings.
what the
There it
one
is.
we wanna look
Okay,
at.
so think of that drawing, when you saw the two buildings, this is what the two buildings would look like. So the people would walk through it, the gate would be to keep everyone out. Everybody would have to pass through the ticket booths, softball, baseball, they would do whichever one they wanted to do. We still have the two concession stands, so the boosters from each one still have their ability to make their money. And the footprint is a little bit different on the baseball because we didn't feel like we needed to do a locker room on both sides. That's the only reason the baseball's a little bit bigger, but the umpires for softball would have access to that area there too. Other than that, we're basically the same thing, except it's two smaller footprints of that, with the exception of the boys' side or baseball side has locker rooms on it. Any questions?
So Ms. Cole, what's the recommendation? What would you like to do?
You know, in a perfect world, I would like, Mr. G wants 3, I like 2. So that's why we're asking for guidance, that you as a board, this is KISD money too, and we're very mindful of that. We do have a nice portion of that that's insurance, but insurance isn't gonna take care of all of it. So that's, especially if we do something like this. But that's why we're asking for your guidance of what you want us to do as a district, how to move forward. We will do whatever you want, and all of them will be fabulous. It's just whichever direction you
I
want.
think option 3 gives us the best of both worlds, where we have everything that we're wanting.
Financially, it's
and
the
financially, it's the most
best option.
fiscally
Can
responsible
you bump into
that
the
we have.
next one?
I was gonna say, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about
Dollars and cents.
dollars and cents.
Dollars and cents.
Because as she said, we have a you know, insurance reimbursement that we're gonna have, but the closer we stay to the footprint of what was there is what we're going to be paid off of. And so that is my concern. Option 3, to me, it keeps us closer to the square footage that we were originally working with, that our claim came off of. But
And
allows us to
basically-
do the other things that we're talking about.
This one, basically the difference is you don't have men and women's restrooms for each sport on each side. It would be a shared restroom for both sports.
You're cutting down a significant portion with the fixtures that you're having to put in.
And we would have two
Toilets.
family
It also looks
restrooms.
like it's one locker
One on
room,
each side.
is that correct?
It's always been one locker room. The
I
other
mean,
one
as
had,
opposed
just
to
on the men's,
Option concept 2.
There was still just one that they
there
were
was
gonna
one
it's
on
still
the,
just one.
yeah, on the baseball side.
It's just.
less
bathrooms.
restrooms.
And
It's
that's,
the
again,
bathrooms then.
that's more fixtures, that's another shower, that's another toilet, that's another sink that you have to put in. It would be lovely to have for both, but it just didn't make sense to do it twice, you know, when they can share that space.
And you said that by doing this, we would be able to fix our parking lot and we would be completely ADA compliant.
Either one of these options,
They're doing that.
other than just building the boys, that takes us to where we can change that up and create different parking on there. Right now, the insurance estimate right now that we're gonna get back from insurance is right around $400,000. But that could change because we don't know what code issues we're gonna come up against and things like that. So there could be a little more money there, but we really need to be mindful of that's kind of where we are at that point.
So back to the ADA compliance and removing the old concession stand from the softball field.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you're confident that it's included in this price? Is there somewhere we can verify that it will be included? I mean, I would hate to go in there and then they start charging another $100,000.
That's Robert's work.
Because we have to remove buildings and repave and.
Well, that's a great question. The estimate that we put together, and I guess, gosh, it's been almost a year, hasn't it? Originally, we were just shy of 700,000, and the insurance company balked at that. They turned it over to their engineering firm, who came back with an estimate that was very similar to mine, but they had left out all of the soft costs, they'd left out all of the furniture, fixtures, equipment that will need to go in here. They'd left a lot of things out. They also hadn't taken into consideration some of the foundations requirements that the current structure doesn't have. So we talked through it, and basically they said, okay, get it designed, and we'll see what you come up with. And so they've initiated a payment to you guys, probably hoping that you'll say thank you and move on. But the buildings that were there don't meet code. The wiring doesn't meet code, the accessibility doesn't meet code, the restrooms don't meet code. And so the structure, and Mr. G indicated, we're trying to stay as close to the square footage as we can. Once we get your approval on the concept, we're gonna take it to the insurance company, say, guys, this is what we're doing. We're about 25% over on square footage, which is your cost. Out of this, in my mind, you're looking at about a 75% reimbursement for this. And that includes all of the soft costs, all the hard construction costs. But we can't get that till we put it out to bid. We can't put it out to bid till we design it. But we played with some scenarios here, which really led us down the path to a complex, which I think makes more sense for you guys. The offset, I think Eileen touched on it, is if we just address the boys, you will have a comparability issue. And now you're talking about a $700,000, $800,000 expense for the girls to make them equitable. Combining them, one gets better utilization of your space, but also better utilization of your dollars. And gets the insurance company to carry the bulk of that burden for you guys. So that's why we went down this path. We just came up with too many great ideas and felt like we should present them to you and let you guys help us decide which one to go with. And I tend to go with Mr. G, sorry.
I know.
That this is pretty efficient layout.
And I did meet with AD Bosted and Coach Irby and Coach Trantham, and we sat down and talked through it, and they're happy with anything. Patty likes what I like. But they were happy with anything that they can get. It's an improvement, so they were fine either way. We went, but I definitely wanted to talk to them to make sure we hit all the things they wanted in there too on that. Yes, ma'am?
So the very first slide that says option 1 and option 2. When you're looking at option 1, where it says bleachers and then all of that, concept one would slide into the option one spot.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, and
And
this
then-
is just doing boys,
just the boys.
baseball, I need to quit saying boys, baseball.
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 Concept two replaces option two. Yes, that's softball and baseball.
Yes,
Then what happens with the area that's behind the bleachers that was option one?
we would have to fill
Flat.
it in, make it a walkway,
Okay.
because the other thing you have to think about too, that's pier and beam. So under that, it drops down 3-4 feet underneath that, so there's a hole. The night that it caught on fire, there was a policeman standing here going, it's not, you know, it is, that's why you're down in the hole. But that's what's happening over at the softball too, which is making it kind of wonky. And some of the footings weren't to code either. So, that's why we have to do that. But keep in mind, when we're doing that, is you see the little X's, that's the fence. That will be, out in the parking lot is where people, or the ADA can come in and we'll have that handicap ramp, the right slope and the turns place on it and everything, but they could come in, but we'll have to fill that in with, you know, how that fill dirt is gonna be, probably just fill dirt and cement. I don't see any reason to tear any of the cement out, that's there. It would be more of a fill, I would think.
And then concept three replaces option one, or it replaces option two?
It would be the same footprint as where option two is right there.
Okay.
It would just be smaller.
Yeah, it's just one
Smashed
building.
together.
All right.
And
It's about
basically,
1,000.
they pushed those two together, made it smaller, everything's just a little bit smaller, but there's still a ticket booth on each side, and still two separate concessions, and everything, it's just, if you look at this, which I love and I get, it costs money, my husband will tell you I like to spend money, but, that's a lot of restrooms. So if we do move it down to one in the smaller footprint, that definitely would fit the need here.
Oh, we're keeping two
Go,
family
go
rooms.
for it.
Ms. Moody, I think we're conflating concepts and options. The option one, option two are the two locations we've talked about, okay? Concept one goes with option one location. Concepts two and three go to the option two location.
Yeah, that's,
And that's what you said with option one with the, it's going down. We have to fix that anyway.
we'll have to fix that.
Okay.
Either way, we're gonna have to fill that hole.
Right.
All right.
All righty.
Any additional questions?
I do have one more for clarification. I did hear the 75% of the soft costs we're hoping will be reimbursed.
All costs.
All, say that again?
All the
All
costs.
costs, right, 75% we're thinking would be reimbursed. Does it, I'm still going back to Mr. Serta's question though, does that include the demolition, and does that include the parking lot?
A portion of that.
Okay.
Yes, a good portion of that, because the buildings have to be demolished. Whether we go with option one, concept one, that the building's gotta come
Come down.
We had demo estimate in our estimate.
Okay.
I don't know if it's exactly proportional, but to answer your question, yes. A good chunk of the demolition and site restoration should be covered by insurance.
It just would not cover the future demolition of the softball.
That's
Correct.
Well, we don't want to demolish them both at the same time, because we're still gonna have to have a softball when during softball season.
Right.
This will not be ready during baseball
No,
season,
it
so
will
we're gonna
not.
have to use the portable, concession that we've used this last time, just because of the timing, because the insurance company, they had to bring, literally, they had to bring Lloyd's of London,
London, yeah.
people from London over to put eyes on this, because they're one of the underwriters, so it's been a very long delayed process, and so we were hoping to have this ready for baseball season, but it's not going to be ready. But once we're done with the completion of the, if we do the combined one, then we would sit there and tear down the softball one as well.
And then the
Also-
parking lot would be a follow-up, that would be additional cost when we did the parking lot changes to make everything ADA.
Yes, we need to do that, but keep in mind tonight, what we're asking for tonight, we're not asking for any money tonight, we're asking which way you wanna go on that. So when we come up with a final design, we'll be back of whatever way you decide you want to go. And we can have that cost for you and have it more broken down before you have to make that financial commitment. The commitment tonight is which way you want to go.
Which design do we like the
I think we're pretty
most?
clear on that.
Yeah,
So we understand that the only thing that we're asking for is
Direction.
Concept
which
to
concept
pursue,
yeah.
is gonna go. So I have a feeling which way I wanna go. I'm hoping, does everybody else have a feeling where they wanna go?
Yes.
Okay. So
I forgot.
I think that, the smartest decision would probably be to go with the option, the latter option, where we have the combined, smaller footprint. But of
You're
course-
talking about concept 3?
Concept 3.
Yes, concept
Okay.
3. That's what I'm thinking. Of course, everybody has their own mind, so you get to vote whichever way you want to do it.
I definitely think it would be appropriate to do either 2 or 3 at this time to take care of softball as well while we're doing baseball. While I tend to err on the side of Miss Mode, and my husband says the same thing about me, I don't know why. But I think I'm leaning more towards concept 3. I don't know, about on average, what do you think, how often are baseball and softball playing at the exact same time?
I don't have exacts on that,
Just
just from when my
guessing.
child played
Yeah.
baseball. Usually in the preseason, before district starts, that's usually when all the tournaments and stuff are going on. I
Right.
know Coach Trantham and Coach Irby try not to have tournaments on the same weekend or Fridays, but I do know we do get a lot of double games. Not so much on the tournaments, I hope, but
Mhm.
we would be able to accommodate a lot easier this way.
Yeah. Because that's the one thought I had was just if, when they're playing at the same time, but I don't think I remember it being too often, because that would be a significant decrease in the amount of bathrooms.
Now I'm speaking to Mike.
Don't give me a minute, I'll actually count last spring, to take a minute if you want.
Oh, okay.
If you wanna know. I know that one thing I can't count though is our softball and baseball fields are particularly, popular in
Yeah.
the rain season because of the turf. And I know that Mr. Barrett and Coach Bostad, they host quite a few, playoff games. So we do get a lot of double dipping on playoff nights between, with softball and
Absolutely,
those, and
absolutely.
sometimes multiple games right in a row. But
Yeah.
I will count with just kind of Alvin and Curtis.
General.
And that is another argument for trying to create a complex as opposed to 2 separate areas, creating a
Oh, yeah.
complex that is a focal point of why people want to come play here.
I think we're sold on the complex.
I think, yeah, I
I don't
think-
think
Yeah.
anybody's saying concept
My
one.
only concern at this point would just be
Is there
the
enough?
restroom situation, when you've got both sports going on at the same time.
Yeah, and my take is that there are enough fixtures in concept 3 that I think you would be able to handle.
I know Trent did a
both
lot of,
at the same time.
we did a lot of seat counting, how many people would be, and what the code requires of the amount of toilets you have to provide men and women and all that.
So I'll do a little survey here. Ms. Ruth Perez, what do
I'm
you-
with number 3.
And
2 is cool, but I'm gonna have to say 3.
Yeah, 2 is great,
Yeah.
but
Douglas, what do you think?
If money weren't an object.
Ms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Mr. Serta?
3.
Sounds like everybody's in agreement with 3. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well then,
Well, then I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, because
Well-
the other thing is, this is gonna be new for, this is new and exciting for both, so it's, I
well,
don't know.
if that's the case, then I motion to approve concept 3 as presented for the Kennedale ISD rebuild of concession stand and restroom.
Motion by Mr. Glovier.
I'll
Second.
And I'm gonna go over Ms. Vigomez, get her that for the second. Okay, and if we're ready for a vote, all in favor of the motion, given direction for the third concept, let it be known by sound aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that's
Thank you.
unanimous,
I
that vote
think
is
the girls
unanimous,
are gonna be
awesome.
really excited, because they didn't know we were going that way, so, thank you for that. I'll let you call me up next.
Thank you, Ms. Mo.
I got the next 3, or next
Okay.
2.
Okay, next is HC, discuss and consider approval of the vendor for the slab and gypsum wall repair at Arthur Intermediate.
Yes, and y'all got the breakdowns on that. We really tried to get a lot of people to bid on this, and we only got 2. Ran it in Star Telegram and everything. Mr. Gabois did a lot of research and calling references, but we really had a tight timeline there. So both are good candidates. So it came down to dollars. Brooks is cheaper than the other one. So that's our recommendation, is to go with them. And we've got to get going on this because we put a real tight stipulation in there that they need to be done by the end of November so we can turn over to Huckabee in December.
Any questions from any board members regarding the, yes?
I want to make comment, Brooks also is saying they're going to finish quicker as well, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the other plus. They had 60 days where the other had 90 days.
They also had they had stronger references, it looks like, so.
And they're
Yeah.
local, right? Because they were
They are
Mansfield.
local.
And the other was further away.
Yeah.
Any additional questions? No question, I'll entertain a motion about approval.
I move to approve Brooks Construction as the vendor for service to repair the slab and gypsum wall repairs at Arthur Intermediate.
Motion by Mr. Glovier.
I second.
And I think Mr. Curtis got that as a second. So, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We now go to 8D. I see you have a motion.
This one gets us money instead of asking for money, so I don't get to do that very often. When I took over transportation, there was some things that had been in place for years. And once you get something new, you start learning new things about it and digging down of why we were doing what we were doing in some of our routings. The hazardous routes, the district has upheld those hazardous routes for years. They've been the same. The difference is it wasn't being reported to the state, so we weren't getting extra funding for that. So what this is asking you to do is put a change policy that says we're gonna recognize that we have hazardous routes, which then allows us to get an additional 10% funding on every one of those routes. So we're just trying to fix something that should have been fixed a little further back, but we're fixing it now. And like I said, we've been transporting those kids anyway, we just weren't getting the funding for it. Any questions?
So I guess my question is really about just the process for creating hazardous bus routes. Is all that it requires for the board to designate this as a hazardous route?
You have to, the board has to designate it. That's kind of the odd thing. That's why we were not receiving the funding, because the board had never designated it. And we're asking you to designate it through the resolution. So we will first vote to approve the resolution, and then you'll read out the resolution. And
It's basically, it requires us to have it in policy that we are gonna have these hazardous routes, and then we're asking the state to pay us a little extra money for those routes. And when I called TEA, that's why we weren't getting it, because we didn't have that stated in our policy.
the reality is, every school district has hazardous routes, but you gotta do this in order to get paid for them.
So we're missing out on some funding that we.
We are
should-
definitely missing out on some funding that we could use.
Seems like a no-brainer.
Funding that we're
Yeah.
due.
Yeah,
Yeah.
For things
exactly.
we're already doing.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Conversation. So I guess if I understand this process correctly, which I'm sure I did, the first thing we need to do is to pass a motion authorizing a resolution. And
You ready?
I will entertain that motion for the resolution.
And I will move to approve the resolution regarding hazardous bus routes for 2022-2023 as presented.
And motion by Ms. Cruz Perez.
Second.
And
Give
that's
us money.
second by Mr. Glovier. All in favor of the motion designating the hazardous routes resolution, or approving the resolution for the hazardous routes, would it be known by the sound aye?
Aye.
All opposed? And that passes unanimously. Now, since we've already designated as a hazardous route, I have to read the resolution
You read the resolution.
regarding the hazardous routes, and then we have to approve that. So the resolution reads as
I
follows.
think you've already approved it, you're just gonna read it out in open session.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. G. I appreciate that. Okay. resolution reads, whereas Education Code 42.155D allows the Board of Trustees of Kennedale Independent School District to obtain supplemental state funding for transporting regular, otherwise ineligible students who live within 2 miles of their school, but who would be subject to hazardous travel conditions if they walked to school. Whereas the TEA handbook on school transportation allotments requires the board to adopt language providing the definition of hazardous travel conditions applicable to the district and identifying the specific hazardous areas for which such funding is requested. Whereas the board acknowledges the Education Code 48.151D provision stating that a hazardous condition exists, whereas no walkway is provided, and students must walk along or across a freeway or expressway, an underpass, an overpass, or a bridge, an uncontrolled major traffic artery, and industrial or commercial areas or other comparable conditions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Kennedale Independent School District has determined that hazardous conditions exist and have identified the following specific hazardous areas in which such conditions exist. Duly passed and approved by the Board of Trustees of the Kennedale Independent School District on this 29th day of September 2022.
We'll sign that at the end, and we'll be good.
Sign that at the end. All right, thank you very much. Okay. Next we'll go to Section 9 Personnel. Mr. Jeans.
Okay, and there are a few items that we're going to have to go into closed session on, so we have to move this into closed session.
All right, and
I'm just saying, do we want to, is there anything else we want to do before we go into closed session?
I think it's a good idea if we were to take care of the other matters, and maybe we can just save the closed session for the end.
We'll do that, so,
Just skip over to,
so the enrollment and attendance, it's in the board book, but you also see our current enrollment. From last year, we were down a total of 24 students, but we were still above what we started last school year with. I believe we started with 2850. Right now, we have 2864. I said down 24 students. We were up at the high school. We were down at Patterson, we're down, and we were down at Delaney, 55 students. And of course, Arthur, those students have been moved into the other campuses, but overall, those campuses are down. We also have transfers of 10 at the high school, and we have 2 at the junior high school. So that's where we sit with everything. Our attendance rates are holding pretty steady. I feel really good about where we are right now with our attendance rates compared to where we were last year. So I think we're doing a good job. Our administrators, I don't know if you noticed how many of our administrators recognitions they were given William Hall awards. I think we've got a lot of things in place right now that are going really, really well. So, any questions on enrollment or attendance?
no questions from me. Any other?
Okay.
No questions.
And then the S'mores newsletter, I've got, we've been working with a group that they are putting together at Kennedale, for the board. They've been doing stories for us, and we put that together into a newsletter for you guys that kind of culminates the stories for September. And then those are going out to the local news media, and they're going out on our websites, and going out on Facebook, but kind of puts them all together for you to kind of showcase and highlight. So that's something new there. And then, of course, you have the campus s'mores that were turned in. I think y'all get all those during the week as it is, so during the month, sorry. So I don't have anything there. Any questions on the s'mores or the newsletters? Okay, then I'll go to C, safety and security. Mr. Spruill and I worked on this together. I did a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce on the state of the district, and I had a request to kind of touch on some of the safety and security things. So I kind of started putting this together. Mr. Spruill and I refined it the other day. I showed this to Mr. Owen, and he thought that it would be a good idea to kind of touch base with you guys, but you kind of see what we have. So I'm going back to whenever I first got here, and the things that we started working towards. You heard Mr. Franklin talk earlier about a lot of the
on in there, a lot of those carry over into the safety and security as well. For instance, the phone system that we revamped and put in, part of the House Senate Bill 11 was a requirement that every teacher would have a phone in their classroom. So to ensure that we had that, he had to make sure that we had phones in all of the classrooms. But then not only did we have phones, but then we updated our phone system to make it, the one we had was kind of antiquated, so we moved into the newer technology of the phone system that makes it, better. And so that was one of the improvements, but I'm gonna go through our list here. So prior to the 2022-23 school year, I'm gonna have to blow this up. Okay, so. There we go. So prior to the 2022-23 school year, we brought in electric entry access and cameras for a cost of $211,300. I'll get it right in a minute. Good gracious. All right. We rekeyed the exterior doors in correlation with that to restrict access to ID badges at a cost of around $7,500. These are rounded, so they're not exact figures, but they're rounded. Updated and improved cameras at the high school and the junior high at a cost of $86,200. We had intercom systems at the campuses fixed and expanded to areas that were not covered for a cost of around $50,000. We hired extra security guard and crossing guards, so in 2019 we added one at a cost of $20,000. In 2020 we added another and added the crossing guards for a cost of $27,300. We restricted access by repairing and adding gates and fences across the district. A lot of this was also taking place during COVID when we were shutting things down. That was a cost of $1,500. We added Raptor visitor protocols to all campuses. At first, all we had them on was the 2 elementary campuses, and then we expanded that to the junior high and high school and to the intermediate school as well. At a cost of $14,800. We have been working on continuous EOP development and implementation. We put in a new phone system, as I said, to ensure classrooms each have one at a cost of $19,600. We brought clear bags in for entry to all games during COVID. And then we have the total cost of these improvements at around $437,900. Improvements that are at work currently, all the secure vestibules at the campuses, by the way, work on Patterson, the high school, and Delaney will start on October 7th and 11th while we're out for the holidays. Then we'll get a lot of the work done on those time. We have, I think, students on campus and try to be as less intrusive there. That's at a cost of $322,800. Fidelity and monitoring doors and exits. We have had, how many, you may want to come down because you may want to speak to some of the things that you've been doing as far as the audit, going around and checking doors and audits that are coming into play. So fidelity and monitoring doors and exits is a big portion of what we're going to be doing this year.
I don't know if you're all aware, but the state actually sent out some mandates this summer for door access checks across every school district in the state. We were required to check every door to make sure they closed and locked properly. We implemented some additional protocols to make sure that we had staff checking those doors regularly and making sure they worked. And then they're still sending out auditors. They hadn't gotten here yet, and I hadn't heard of any districts that have been hit yet, but they're coming. And I would suspect that they would cover our whole district in a day. So if they come here, they'll probably do all 4 schools.
Okay. So then that fidelity there, and then conducting intruder drills. We are required by law to conduct intruder drills. We're also required by law to schedule drills, which I'll kind of cover a little bit more. The utilization of Raptor emergency notification system. So we expanded Raptor once again this last year to bring in the emergency
management
notification system. Part of that's the reunification, communication planning, but it's also the ability to sit there and have mass notifications. And you've
been seeing the drills, you
Yeah.
were talking about it earlier. You want to explain what the Raptor app does and all that?
I think, has everybody downloaded the app and understand how to use it?
No.
Have access, want access?
I think Mr. Owens and I have.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else.
It allows you to see basically what's going on when you get into the app and when they initiate an event. There's a lot of messaging, there's roll calls to make sure they have all their students, and that opens doors. So when you start an event, it opens the next door. So if you have to progress to putting kids on a bus and moving them to a reunification site, you already have rosters that you can use to turn those students back over to the parents, have them sign for it digitally, and then we have a digital record of that, which has to be maintained for 3 years. So it's a good system. It's very helpful for us.
Okay. And we also can schedule the drills, our administrators can schedule the drills. He's notified, he knows when the drills are supposed to be taking place, whether they're taking place or not, so able to monitor that as well.
On the app too.
And
if
we
I
are
recall.
current as of right now.
I was gonna say,
So
can we
as-
get a report for that? So, I know we brought it up in some of our other meetings, and you have scheduled drills down. And I'm not asking for the specific date, but if every month there's supposed to be a fire drill.
No.
Every
There's a schedule of events that they have to have.
Okay.
We have them all scheduled. It's not a fire drill every month. They have to have some evacuations, they have to have some
Okay.
holes.
So whatever it is they're supposed to have.
Right.
Can we get a
KISD
report
one.
that,
Surely.
even if the report says all drills were met? Or, I just want to, I would like to have a report. I don't know if anybody else on the board does, but I think it's important that it's publicly known that the drills, Kennedale has always done the drills. It was unfortunate as to what happened in Uvalde, but this district has always taken care of the kids. And I think that's important for the community to know that we're having our fire drills, we're doing the holds, whatever other things that they're required to do, it's getting done. So if it's no more than Mr. G saying, or you saying, all drills were met, and we move forward.
Ms. Moody,
That's what,
when you download the app, it's all in there.
but if I don't have the app, I'm on the board.
We'll send an email to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but if I don't have that, if
Okay.
I'm a parent in the district, I wanna know that at Delaney, they're current. If I'm at Patterson, I wanna know everybody, not my child at my school, everybody in Kennedale is good, even the ad building.
I'd like to add, I know we had a question before about being notified if something happened at school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, this Raptor program, whenever something happened or initiated, it comes across, and we can
Right.
see if it's a drill, when it's included, and everything. So I think it would be a great idea for
It
everybody
is
to get.
In
really
fact, we had an
That's
actual
for us.
drill
Yeah.
I'm talking about
last
for
week.
the
Last
public.
week, yeah.
Not an actual drill.
I got that.
Uh,
No,
it was
this
a-
was just in addition to what you had already
Yes.
said.
We had an actual event last
Raccoon?
week. It wasn't a drill, if y'all got that.
Possum.
It was a possum,
Yeah.
They thought it was a rabbit possum on the playground, so they initiated a hold.
Rabbit.
And that allowed them to use the app and practice using it, so that was very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so then added for the 2022-23 school year was the clear bags and packs for students 6th grade through 12th grade at a cost of about $4,100 for the district. Now we have recouped some of that cost, but not all of it. Exterior door entry, audit, and repair, that was a requirement from the summer where all doors had to be repaired in preparation for the start of the school year. That was around a cost of about $5,000. Expanded Raptor to include the emergency management and student safe, that was at a cost of about $2,800. The reunification training, which Mr. Sproul went through with the situation with Timberview and Mansfield. And when he came in, he said this is something we really need to bring in, and this is where we expanded the Raptor system to include the reunification aspect of it. Costs associated with reunification as far as barricades and all the things that we've been putting into it is about a cost of about another $5,000. The mandates for school districts from Senate Bill 11 and following Uvalde, the campus threat assessment teams, the campus safety committees, district security committees, the alert training for all staff, stop the bleed training for all staff, Stop the Bleed kits and AEDs to all campuses, buildings, and vehicles. Vehicles were not mandated, but we did those anyway at a cost of about $5,000. The Texas School Safety Center survey that we had to fill out and send before the start of school year or a little bit after the start of school year. Scheduled drills, as I mentioned earlier. Exterior door inspections and report prior to the 22-23 school year. The random door audits, which is now the requirement that the state is going to have the service centers come around and check that he mentioned earlier. And then we have to conduct weekly door audit logs, which we have to have campus personnel performing or security personnel. So, and then our district EOP submissions to the Texas State Security Center. All of those are mandated under Senate Bill 11 and the mandates that came down following Uvalde. And we've been doing all of those things, except for the door audits, which are now commonplace, or will be commonplace. All of those improvements that I talked about coming at a cost since 2019 of about $782,600. So when I say that we have been upgrading our security, we have been upgrading our security. I will point out also that following Senate Bill 11, all of the money that the state says that they sent out to school districts, what was allocated to Kennedale ISD was a whopping $49,700. You tell me what we paid for with that $49,700 that we haven't paid for as a district on our own. That basically paid for our two security guards. So, you know, I say this all the time. They come up with all these mandates, all these things that they want us to do, but they don't give us the money that we need to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like that we have spent a lot of time and investment in updating our procedures and our security measures, and I feel like we're in a very good place. I know that I have been going around checking doors. He's going around checking doors. Our principals are going around checking doors. Ms. Mode and her staff are checking doors. I mean, it's just becoming very commonplace. And a lot of what we talk about all the time is it's just changing the culture. And we are working on changing the culture.
And there's more to do. There's more funding that is required for some other upgrades. We just haven't gotten there yet.
And we are working towards all of our needs assessments and continue to work towards those to put that back together again as we come through the strategic planning. And so we'll be bringing all that to you whenever they finish up with all that. I will also say that we are continuing to look at all safety options which are available as we navigate this unpredictable environment in which we live. Recently, Mr. Owens, Mr. Glover, and I attended a demonstration on the Guardian program at Grapeford ISD. It was very interesting, you know, and I don't know that that necessarily is the path that we need to be on right now, but in the situation that those schools are in, you can see where it's very much needed. And I think it's very eye-opening, but we are looking at different options as we're always looking at different things, so. Any questions?
No questions here. Any questions from anyone else?
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, that's pretty much my report.
All right, great. So I think, except for setting a date for our next meeting, that includes everything except us going into special closed session?
Yep. And we can do all that after the closed session.
Okay.
Some of that's gonna come into that point there.
Absolutely, okay. So, let me get down to that section. I lost connection here for a second, so I've got to go back in here. All right, so, okay. Trying to see where that actual wording is, so. We will now enter into closed session to discuss any personnel matters. Okay, so this board will now adjourn into closed session and pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. And I believe that is section 551. 6.074. And we'll go into closed session.
We are, we're good. Can you redo the announcement?
Okay. Okay, we will return to open session at 8:49 PM. Okay, returning to the items in which we had skipped earlier, back to 9B, discussion, review, consideration, evaluation instrument used for superintendent. We will be scheduling a special work session to go through that. And need a date, need a motion to have a
No
special.
motion, just October 18th.
Okay.
The date was, that doesn't take guys.
All right. That special work session will take place on October 18th
6
at
PM.
6:00 PM. Okay? And then we will move to 9C, consideration and possible action regarding contract abandonment, seeking sanctions for abandonment of contract. Chair will entertain a motion for that.
I make a motion for to authorize the superintendent to request sanctions on the teacher certification of Rachel Applewhite.
And that is motion by Ms. Moody.
Second.
And that's second by Mr. Glovier. Are there any questions regarding that? And we are ready for a vote. All in favor of the motion to authorize superintendent to sanction? Let it be known by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that will pass unanimously. And now we go down to number 11 for the upcoming dates of the meeting, for our next meeting. So our next regular scheduled meeting will be on October 27th at 6 PM. And then 11B.
And 11B was the notification about the Raise Your Hand Texas, but we're going to have the special work session that has already been scheduled for October 18th at 6:00, so we'll not be able to attend that.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. G. All right, well, that brings us down to our favorite part of every meeting. the
Mr.
adjournment.
President,
Yes, Mr. Logan.
I move that we end this meeting and get up out of here.
And that has been, I have no problem with that. Adjournment at 8:52 PM.
I know how you like to.